Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan Metal video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at the physical LR Android 16 and how, well, I say Android 16 but you know it's Android 17, 18 turning into Android 16, and basically how good they are in the Zamasu event. Now I will preface this with one thing. I believe that they are good enough to be used in the Zamasu event 100%. The big issue that they have, at least for me, is that I don't have a team that can super reliably run them. So the big issue ultimately at the end of the day is whether you have a team to kind of run them on. Remember, you don't have a lot of options with these guys. You're looking at Joint Forces, Androids, Android Cell Saga. It's not like you've got a huge number of, units to, I guess, kind of like run them on, like teams. And so what this does is this makes, like, how can I say, this makes like building the team and a team that can take on Zamasu a bit more difficult, because Zamasu obviously has a very distinct AoE mechanic in the first phase. Now this doesn't actually phase them. They actually do quite fine with it, especially if you're above 66% health and you get that extra bit of evasion. They actually come out pretty fine. They're very consistent, very strong. The big issue, or yeah, whatever way you want to put it, the big problem that they have, unfortunately, is that ultimately at the end of the day, the rest of the team can't really handle the heat. And so what this does is this kind of forces you to have units that just really can't be first slot units. I think out of the whole Android's team, I think there are like there's like 3 units that can be first slot units. I think you have Int Android 16 Super Strike, who, if you have a whole team of Android Cell Saga units and he gets his damage reduction and guard to proc, then he can be a first slot unit. Then I think if you have multiple dupes of Android 16 and 18, I think they can be a first slot unit, I believe. And then I think the strength Android 17, Hellfighter 17, when they transform into Super 17, they definitely can be a first slot unit. So that's it. That's like your full spectrum of units. I think if you have a Rainbow Super 17, the AGL one, I think he can be a first slot unit. If you have a Rainbow one, that's like max think level and stuff like that. So you don't have like a huge array of units. You have a ton of great second slot units, and that's what Android 17, 18, and 16 are. Even the Android 16 exchange mechanic is just not a good, like, realistically, it's just not a, essential, how can I say, he's not a good first slot unit. Like, Android 16 is great, and his defense is tremendous after he supers. That's just how he functions. So the big problem is, unfortunately, is that they essentially, like, really do struggle a little bit. That's all. They struggle a little bit. They, like, in terms of team building, just kind of have too many hindrances to really be amazing for this event. Themselves as a unit, if you had to isolate them, like if I could put them on, for example, Dragon Ball Heroes, it's just I know they can't fit on there, but it's just in theory, if you could like slot them onto a DB Heroes team, or maybe if I could slot them onto a Future Saga team, these guys would be great. They'd be fantastic for the first phase. Between their evasion and type advantage and their decent start turn defense, they'd be more than fine against the AoEs. You maybe would take a bit of chip damage, but you would be fine. Then, outside of that, they also have like very, very, very good after super defense. And in the second phase, they have more than enough defense after super to be really impactful. They have good attack stats, they provide support, and that's why I think, like, if they had different categories, they'd be really a top unit for all these events. They are themselves a top unit, just if they had the right categories, or you could build the right teams around them, then they would really, really manifest really well. With that being said though, they still do a great job. And if there was a unit that could help push Androids over the line here, it is probably them. I think, they really do have a good kit. Like a very nice, strong kit. Very powerful unit. They do a good chunk of damage. They're very consistent offensively. They're very good defensively, of course. The big thing, at least from me, the only big thing I would say is Android 16. I think they could have done a little bit more defensively. He's only out for 3 turns. Like, I understand he's very impressive. Don't get me wrong. I think his after super defense is like, I don't know, like 1 million plus, or something along those lines with a rainbow unit or something. He's got that 50% crit chance. He's got guaranteed crit if you're below 66% health. He's got additional super attacks if you're facing Android Cell Sagas or if you've got on all Androids turn. Yeah, the big thing is 2 things. One, he does still sacrifice HP, which is fine. 6% HP is not the end of the world, but he does still sacrifice HP. And then 2, he's only there for 3 turns. Like, he's only there literally twice. And for me, if a unit is there only twice, considering how strong some of the standby mechanics are, like if you look at Oob, and I know people will say, well, Oob can't attack, and I understand that Oob can't attack, but if you look at Oob, yes, Oob cannot attack at all, but the thing is, like, ultimately the thing is, he's still really, really, really strong. Android 16, I feel like they could have just added guard for 1 turn. Just even that, like guard for 1 turn, or maybe for both turns that he's out, would have been more than fine. Wouldn't have made him OP, would have made his raw defense mean everything, and he would have been an absolute machine. So that's the only change that I think they could have made. That's honestly about it. Everything else about the units is great. I think their starter turn defense, you do need Android Assault active, but I think their starter turn defense is fine. Their after super defense is great. The evasion mechanic is more than acceptable. 50% support in their base form. Nice attack stats. We're talking 11 million, 10 million, 9 million. But yeah, really good. And anything holding them back, honestly, at least for me, my box is the team. But I think they're a great unit, and they're good for a ton of hard content. They help the Androids team. Bye.